a massive military drill puts Taiwan on edge, but is the bluster hiding China's greatest fear? Welcome to China Uncensored, I'm Chris Chappell. China says it's now ready to fight after military drills near Taiwan. But is the U.S.? There's a very real possibility the Chinese Communist Party will attempt an invasion of Taiwan. I just realized that's an evergreen statement. I mean, like, a very real, very soon possibility. Over the weekend, China conducted 3 days of large-scale combat exercises around Taiwan, called the Joint Sword Drills. The Chinese military was simulating a blockade of Taiwan and precision strikes of the island. The PLA even released this handy CGI in case there were any doubts about the Chinese regime's intentions. And in case there were still any doubts, China's military released a statement saying the theater's troops are ready to fight at all times and can fight at any time to resolutely smash any form of Taiwan independence and foreign interference attempts. They couldn't have made it any more obvious if they wrote Taiwan, who we are about to invade, on the chest of one of those punching dummy things. These drills were also the first simulated aircraft carrier strike on Taiwan. That aircraft carrier was the Shandong, China's first domestically built carrier. In just 3 days, there were more than 200 flights by Chinese warplanes, which is terrifying, mostly because that means they're better at coordinating flights than Southwest Airlines. Taiwanese Foreign Minister Joseph Wu warned a Chinese misstep could lead to the outbreak of an uncontrollable world war. He said any accident might spark an uncontrollable war between Taiwan and China, and if other countries are trying to intervene, it might be the start of a war of great scale. World War III? That would be a catastrophe. Because if history has taught me anything, it's that the third film in a trilogy is always the worst. Is there a way to prevent that? More after the break. Welcome back. It's very clear that China wants to take Taiwan. The question is, what can be done to stop it? The Taiwanese people have no love for the CCP. During China's drills, these mock Air Force badges went viral. They're made by a Taiwanese artist depicting a Formosan black bear holding Taiwan's flag, punching Winnie the Pooh. I didn't know I needed one of those, but now I need one of those. That's how bad Xi Jinping is. He's making people root for violence against beloved childhood characters. Imagine if someone were so evil, you'd want to start buying a bumper sticker showing Kermit the Frog getting curb stomped. But the U.S. is also taking action. While the Chinese drills were happening, the U.S. conducted a freedom of navigation operation by sending a destroyer by the Mischief Reef in the South China Sea, challenging China's claims to the territory. China has built an artificial island there. China criticized the U.S. for illegally trespassing while they were training to invade Taiwan. It'd be like a serial killer complaining that someone nearby was jaywalking. The Freedom of Navigation operation is important because the waterways around the Philippines and in the South China Sea contain some of the world's most valuable trade routes. If China takes over Taiwan, that would essentially seal in the South China Sea. China would control trillions of dollars of shipping. Right before these recent joint sword drills, China said it would start inspecting ships in the Taiwan Strait. They're trying to create a blockade? Just like in The Phantom Menace from the Star Wars prequel trilogy. A trilogy so bad, it might even be worse than World War I through III. But the U.S. and the Philippines are now beginning their largest ever joint military drills, involving more than 17,000 troops, including 12,000 from the U.S. Officially, the U.S. and the Philippines say these drills weren't a response to China's drills. They were planned in advance. But that's like saying buying a bunch of fireworks in late June was planned in advance and not a response to July 4th. You knew it was coming, so you're stocking up on explosives. The U.S. is increasing its military presence in the region, and that is in response to China's increasing threats. The U.S. will now have access to 4 new military bases in the Philippines. right near disputed territorial waters. But some are wondering, is all this U.S. support for Taiwan and increased military activity in the region actually pushing us toward war with China? The BBC says the U.S.-Philippine drills could incur China's wrath. But to be fair, everything incurs China's wrath. Even Winnie the Pooh. If that silly old bear is pissing you off, you don't need an army. You need a hug. Some say China's drills near Taiwan are a response to Taiwanese President Tsai Ing-wen meeting U.S. Speaker of the House McCarthy. The meeting happened despite China's warnings. And now, angry China hits back at Taiwan with the military drills. I know no one wants a war with China. Well, except for maybe the U.S. military-industrial complex. But a lot of Americans are fed up with foreign wars. Which is why I say this. More U.S. support for Taiwan isn't pushing us closer to war, it's actually the best way to prevent a war. China threatened to retaliate if the McCarthy-Tsai meeting happened. But other than some toothless sanctions, China didn't retaliate. China's basically that bully who says, I dare you to cross this line. Then you do, and they say, you're lucky I'm not in the mood to beat you up right now. Beijing made a lot of noise about the recent drills and can CGI all at once. Sweet Windows 97 graphics you got there, bro. Does that thing also come with Minesweeper? But the Communist Party is getting spooked by increased U.S. support for Taiwan and growing distrust of China. A year ago, China held military drills near Taiwan after then Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi visited Taiwan. The media, of course, talked about how furious China was. Gotta think of the feelings of the Chinese people, right? Which is a dumb excuse, of course, because if you're in the Communist Party long enough, you no longer have feelings. But here's the thing. These latest drills were actually a step back from the one after Pelosi's trip. After Pelosi's trip, the live-fire exercises disrupted flights and shipping in one of the busiest shipping lanes for global trade. This time, shipping and maritime traffic have largely continued as normal. If this trend continues, their next wrath incurred might just be them throwing a big rock into the ocean. Yeah, that'll show you not to defy us. The Communist Party is trying to paint this picture that their fury is growing, that they're escalating things in response to U.S. support for Taiwan. But the opposite is true. The more U.S. support there is for Taiwan, the better. The CCP does not want to risk a war with the U.S. Even they know the third in a trilogy is always the worst. Which is why the CCP is waging this propaganda campaign, to make Americans think it's better to just abandon Taiwan to avoid war. But the truth is, abandoning Taiwan will ensure a Chinese invasion. Supporting Taiwan now is the best way to prevent an invasion. Standing up to a bully makes them back down. It's Elementary School 101. In a recent episode of our China Unscripted podcast, we spoke to Colonel Grant Newsham, a former Marine intelligence officer. And he said if China can get the U.S. to hesitate for just 3 days to do something after an invasion of Taiwan, China will conquer the island. Authoritarian regimes don't want peace. They want to conquer. That's why U.S. support for Taiwan now is so important, because after a Chinese invasion begins, it could be too late. And this show would not exist without support from viewers like you. YouTube frequently demonetizes, suppresses, and secretly unsubscribes people from this channel. If you want to support this show, consider buying one of these amazing West Taiwan travel posters from our merch store over at ChinaUncensored.tv/merchandise. Or you can join the China Uncensored 50-cent army by contributing to the show on Patreon. You'll get a bunch of cool perks, including the ability to ask me questions I'll answer on the show. And today's question comes from Peter Parker. Hi, Taiwanese here. Just joined the 50-cent army. Thank you for telling the world why Taiwan is important and supporting us. Question: what can average Taiwanese citizens do to help stop the possible CCP invasion? I hope to contribute to peace even just by a little bit. That's an excellent question. I think one of the biggest things you can do is keep an eye out for communist subversion in Taiwan. The CCP would much rather Taiwan surrender without a fight. So they try to make economic inroads or influence elections, use psychological warfare in an attempt to get Taiwanese people to think they'd be better off just joining up with China. If you meet people who think that way, especially if there are politicians pushing a pro-CCP stance, talk to them. Help them understand what's at risk. One of Taiwan's greatest strengths is its soft power. When China tried to put economic pressure on Taiwan by boycotting Taiwanese fruit, it backfired big time. Other countries stepped in and actually increased sales. Be part of that. Show countries around the world how wonderful Taiwan is and what it has to offer. The entire modern technological world depends on semiconductors made only in Taiwan. The more countries around the world see how important Taiwan is, the more they'll be willing to stand up for Taiwan in the face of Chinese communist aggression. Try to become less dependent on Chinese goods. Even though China is threatening to invade, China is still Taiwan's largest trading partner. That's insane. Seek alternatives. Encourage others to do the same. If you can, create alternatives to made-in-China products and boycott companies that put Taiwan in danger by working with the CCP. There are a bunch of things you can do. Maybe everyone watching has some good ideas as well. So if you think of something, leave a comment below. Thanks for your question and your support, Peter Parker. And thank you for watching. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. See you next time.